Today I'm going to talk about CSS Combinator, and it will be presented by me and Pematology. What is CSS Combinator? A combinator is something that explains the relationship between the selectors. A CSS selector can contain more than one simple selector. Between the simple selector, we can include a combinator. There are four different combinators in CSS. First one is Descendant Selector, second one is Child Selector, third one is Adjacent Sibling Selector, and fourth one is General Sibling Selector. And I'm going to explain only Descendant Selector and Child Selector. Those two will be explained by Premodoji. What is Descendant Selector? The Descendant Selector matches all elements that are descendant of a specified element. So to be more clear, I'm going to show some example. So under input, I'm going to show some coding, and under style, I have def space p, which signifies a descendant, where space signifies main descendant selector, and under def space p, I have background color yellow, which means word or text which are under division p will be all background yellow. So here under the division, I have child 1, child 2, child 3 and child 4, which are under same division. Those 4 will be colored yellow, and child 5 and child 6 is outside the division, so those two words will not be colored background color yellow. So to make you guys clear, I'm going to show some output. Like I said earlier, that child 1, child 2 and child 3 and child 4 are under same division, so those are background color yellow, and child 5 and 6 are not background color yellow because they are outside the division. What is child selector? The child selector selects all elements that are the children of a specified element. So to make you guys clear, I have some example. So here under the style, I have def, which is less than p, and under them we have background color yellow. So here division, which is less than p, which is less than sign shows that it is a child selector. So only it will select the child, and it will background color yellows. So under the division, I have child 1, child 2, child 3 and child 4, and they are under the same division. But in case about the child selector, this child 3 will not be under the same division, because child 3 word is descendant of a division, so it falls under the descendant selector, so it will not be colored background colored yellow. And those child 5 and child 6 is obviously outside the division, so those two will also not be colored yellow. So to be more clear, I will show the output. Like I said, child 1, child 2, child 3 and child 4 falls under same division, but about the child 3, it falls under descendant division, so it will not be colored background colored yellow. And child 5 and child 6 is outside the division, so these two also will not be colored yellow.
On adjacent sibling selector and general sibling selector. The adjacent sibling selector. Adjacent sibling usually means an element which is written or which have a parent element are known as adjacent sibling. The adjacent sibling selector represented by a plus sign. So in our example, the header, div and footer, they are called adjacent siblings since they are having one parent element. And the adjacent sibling means the second element which is immediately preceded by first element. They are called adjacent sibling. Here the div and header, they are called adjacent siblings since the div is immediately preceded of a header. And also the def and footer can be considered, or they are adjacent siblings, since the footer is immediately preceded of def, but the header and footer cannot be considered as adjacent siblings, since in middle they are having def. So in this example, header, we are having one parents element, which is header element in our example, and h1, h2 and p, they are sibling, they are called sibling since they are having one parent element, header. So the how sibling selector, adjacent sibling selector usually works. So here in our inside the style, the h2 or the second element should be the immediate preceded of first element h1. How they will know whether the h2 is immediately preceded of h1? The browser will check here inside the parents element h2. It will check whether it is preceded of h1 or not. In our example, h2 is preceded of h1, since between h1 and h2 there is no other elements, so that's why h2 is immediately preceded of h1. So if the condition is true, then the CSS action, whatever the CSS action written inside the braces, will be taken on the h2 elements. So in our output we can see after the hello world is in h1, but after that it is h2 which the action has been taken to the h2, since the h2 is that immediately precede of h1. So if we change here, if we give p and if we check the result, the action, there won't be taken any action, since the p is not an immediate preceded of h1. How? Because here between h1 and p we can see that there is having one h2, but if we change here h2 and execute, it will work. The action will be taken to p, since the paragraph element is immediately preceded of the first one of header 2. Between h2 and p there is no any other element, so that's why the paragraph elements is directly or immediately preceded of h2. That's why the action is taken on p paragraph. The general sibling selector. General, the term itself define the general means whatever the second elements, whether it is immediately preceded of a previous elements or not, the action will be taken to the selected elements. It selects any elements targeted by the selector written after the tilted character. So general sibling selector is represented by tilted, which is having like wave-like structure, shape. It usually represent general sibling selector. So any selected elements which is targeted or which is written after the general sibling selector will be executed. It need not be immediately preceded of its previous elements, unlike adjacent sibling selector. The general sibling selector is represented by tilde character. So let us say h1 tilde h1. So in this case, as we can see, although they are sibling of header elements, but the the paragraph elements is not immediately preceded of h1, but since it uses a general sibling selector, the action will be taken, the CSS action will be taken to the paragraph element. The CSS action will be taken to the paragraph element, even if the selected element is a preceded of a previous element. The action can be taken. Unlike adjacent sibling selector, the general sibling selector doesn't need to be immediately preceded of its previous selector. Thank you.